My name is Mike Gravitt. I've been legally blind since birth. I have an eye condition called retinitis pigmentosa, which is basically, it means that most of my retina is dead, whereas a normal retina looks pink, mine is brown, and that inhibits my ability to see primarily peripherally. I can see directly in front of me, so I can look at something straight ahead. I can see it okay. Really what I have is just a way of saying tunnel vision. I grew up in the southern part of Virginia in a very rural area. The name of the town is called South Boston, Virginia, and I went to Longwood University in Farmville, Virginia, and then I relocated to Pittsburgh after finishing my college education to begin working. My first introduction to technology really took place when I was about 10 or 11 years old. My dad bought the first computer that I had. It was an old Epson 286. It had a whopping 640 kilobytes of RAM, a 20 megabyte hard drive, 16 color monitor, a dot matrix printer, and I think at that time he paid $3,500 for it. A very very expensive piece of equipment. Of course, this was before Windows, and this was before the internet. I mean, this was just the old-fashioned back in the DOS days, right? And actually, the at the time, I didn't have any assistive technology, so the only way I could look at this computer was to get my face right up in the monitor and look at everything and really strain. But it was very good in a lot of ways because it introduced me to computers, got me used to it. I was probably about the only person in my 5th and 6th grade class at the time that would do all my homework on the computer, because it was easier for me to type on the computer than it was to write, even or despite the fact that I had to look really close. By the time I was 12, I was writing computer programs in BASIC, beginner's all-purpose symbolic instruction code. I doubt if anyone out there even knows what that is anymore, but I was writing simple little games and things like that. And of course, growing up in a really small town, my dad traveled a lot on work, and my mother didn't drive. So really, I'd get off the school bus, and I didn't really have any other outlets, so I'd sit there and just be on the computer quite a bit. And that's probably really what started a lot of things for me in my interest in computers. Well, at the time I had slightly better vision, and I would literally hunt and peck the keyboard, but I would put my face right up to the keyboard. So I would look really close at the keyboard and then go back up and look really close at the monitor and just go back and forth. Finally, in around 10th grade, I took a class in high school on how to type. And that taught me how to type that, and plus I used a neat little program called Mavis Beacon Teaches Typing on the computer. So between the two I learned to type, and that at least eliminated the need to have to look at the keyboard. Probably my senior year in high school, around 12th grade, that I was first introduced to a software program called Zoom Text that allowed me to magnify what was on the monitor. That way I could see things up to 16 times the original size, and then I didn't have to strain my eyes as much. So I eventually got JAWS, which is a software application that reads to you what's on the screen. But aside from the computer, the other assistive technology that I've begun using was a CCTV, a closed-circuit television, which is a machine that you can use to put a piece of paper or a book underneath, and it magnifies everything onto a monitor. I was first introduced to that type of equipment in my 11th grade. The disadvantage of growing up in a small town is that I really didn't have many resources available to me as far as who knew what was out there. I mean, the CCTV had been around for a long time, but it wasn't until my high school hired a vision itinerant teacher for the school that came in, and he met me and he says, "Why aren't you using a CCTV?" And I said, "A what?" I'd never even heard of one, and he showed it to me, and that pretty much turned everything around for me, because before that I really had a hard time reading print. I would have to I'd get all my books in large print and try to put my face right down into the print to read it, really straining my eyes. Even went with my dad and I or my dad and me to Longwood University to do a tour of the college, which is eventually what made me decide to go to college. Before that, I was just really wanting to get through high school and just be done with education, because I was, it started to become so frustrating for me trying to read and do everything. Our equivalent of blindness and visual services, which at the time was called the Department of Visually Handicapped. I was 120 miles from their nearest office in Richmond. Needless to say, they didn't really put me high up on their priority to do much with me, just because they had to come out and so far to do anything. I had very little orientation and mobility training with a cane. Pretty much everything at the time when I used the cane, everything I did, I taught myself. It really wasn't until I moved to Pittsburgh that I really got some better O&M training. Well, actually, my major was in business, with a focus on management information systems, which is basically the business approach to using information technology and computers. I'd say probably the hugest challenge for me at college was just in general being away from home. I, like a lot of other kids with disabilities, and don't get me wrong, I love my parents, but I think there's probably certain things that they didn't allow me to do as other kids not in my situation would have been allowed to do. So, I barely know how to do my own laundry. But there again, I've been informed a lot of college freshman males don't know how to do their laundry, so I guess it's not a big deal. But probably the biggest challenge was just learning how to get around on my own, how to do everything independently. Didn't have mommy and daddy to call out to. But electronic books really didn't even come around to after I was already out of college. When I was still going to college, everything was still read on audio tape. Mm-hmm. The old 4-track cassettes that recordings for the blind and dyslexic use. It really wasn't until later in the 90s and earlier in the 2000s that electronic texts have become more readily available. It all started from an email that I received from the Disability Student Services Director at Longwood, talking about a job fair in Washington, D.C., being hosted by the President's Committee on Employment of People with Disabilities. When I got out of college, I was planning on moving to the D.C. area. So I said, well, what better way to start this than to go to this job fair and to meet some employers that are obviously disability friendly, else they wouldn't be at a job fair that the President's Committee on Employment of People with Disabilities was hosting. So picture this. Here's my first adventure out into officially doing a job hunt. I'm in Washington, D.C., and I walk into this huge room of different employers, and the first table I walk to has been their consulting services. I admit I was a little leery of coming to Pittsburgh, just because I really didn't know anything or anybody up here. But they made me feel real comfortable, and they introduced me to Bayer, and that's how I ended up here. The first things I did when I moved to Pittsburgh was get in touch with blindness and visual services, and access for transportation. Access was first, because obviously that whole program is unlike anything I'd ever even seen before. I'd heard about it in the D.C. area, but really, to my knowledge, nowhere in Virginia has anything like that, except Richmond. I think Richmond does have a smaller version of it, but I hear it's nowhere near as good as Pittsburgh. And it's so interesting how so many people here complain about access, but it's, you know, one of the best services of its kind anywhere in the country. I use access primarily to come to and from work. And I live in the Dormont area, which is really good on public transportation. I use public transportation whenever I can. It's just a little difficult getting public transportation to the building I work at. Either through the equivalent of blindness and vision services down in Virginia, or here, I've pretty much gotten 100% of everything I've asked for and needed, funded through the state. The only downside is that, you know, that's for work, but a lot of times people want technology for home too. Luckily, since I do some work from home, the state was able to work with me and give me equipment for home as well. First of all, I guess it shouldn't be noted that my primary responsibility is doing work in IT, information technology, data management. I spend pretty much my whole entire day working on the computer. And some of the different technologies that I use when I'm using the computer itself, let me just bring this down to a regular size screen. That you're just looking at Microsoft Word right now, just for the purposes of example. But the first piece of technology I use is something called Zoom Text, which does screen magnification. I just inverted the color on this, and in addition to seeing things magnified, you're also seeing it inverted. At any one time, if I want, I can invert it back to regular size, and I can type, and I can make it up to about a 36 times size. But I usually keep it at around this level here. And like I said, I can toggle back and forth between white on black or black on white. I typically prefer the white on black just because it's a little easier on my eyes. But the really cool thing about Zoom Text is that, obviously the first time someone sees something like this, they're like, well, how the heck do you know what is happening on the screen? Because you can only see one little part of it at a time. But as you'll notice, as I type, and I'll just type in some stuff here, hello there, the magnified portion of the screen follows the cursor down here. Okay. But also, in addition to following the actual cursor, it'll follow the mouse pointer as well. So as I'm maneuvering around different portions of the screen, as I move the mouse, it'll follow that too. Or if I, for example, go into the Start menu and start arrowing down through different options, Zoom Text will follow that too. So most of the things that you do intuitively, Zoom Text will follow what you're doing, just to allow you to be able to keep track of where you are on the screen. And of course, by using Zoom Text and maneuvering around different parts of the screen, I end up keeping my hands on the mouse a good portion of the day. So I have two different versions of the mouse. I have one that I use through the standard mouse pad, but if I do have a need to keep my hands positioned, I also have a mouse bar underneath my keyboard, so I can just use this roller bar and it slides left and right and up and down, and I can also use it to click on things. It takes a lot of getting used to doing that, but it makes life a lot easier when you don't have to move your hands in order to use your mouse. The other piece of technology I use it's called JAWS, and that's I'm turning that on now. It takes a couple seconds to kick in. I primarily use that when I have to read large documents, or if I want to take a break with my eyes and have JAWS allow me to just to listen to things to navigate around the screen. As I start to hit different items on the screen,
and leaving menus, link document link.
It prompts me as I'm moving. So right here, in Word, I hit File, or hit Alt F to go to File, and then N for New Document. And then it prompted me by saying, the first option is a blank document. So I can hit
Enter document 1, print view, edit, document 2 Microsoft Word, print view, edit.
And that was just prompting me as to what is on the screen now, telling me that it's the second document of Microsoft Word that I have open up. And what I can do is
if I start to space.
Start to space? I don't know why I did that.
Space. JAWS will read everything back to me at I type period.
And then what I can do is
if I start to type, JAWS will read everything back to me as I type.
I can have it read entire sentences. We use Lotus Notes here for email. I can have
Windows D list view A or phone book L Lotus Notes 6.5 enter.
I can go into Lotus Notes here.
Workspace Lotus Notes. Workspace Lotus.
And you can see I'm kind of using Zoom Text in conjunction.
My mail list box to move to an item. Press the arrow keys.
With JAWS.
Mail is on US-mail 01
and then
US/mail.
why did I end up here?
My mail tag to switch pages.
I have way too many icons on my Lotus Notes.
US-mail 01 server US/mail over TCP/IP. My Gravitt-mail quota warning. Dialog. The size of your mail file is 146.32 MB. The quota size restriction is 150 MB. Exceeding the quota size restriction will prevent you from creating, replying to, or
okay, this is prompting me to clean up my email some. So basically I can just scroll up and down my email here and enter on something. But we won't get too much into the email here, but that's the primary things that I use JAWS for, is when I need to read a Word document or a huge email, but obviously JAWS is built, in theory, for someone who's blind to not even have to look at the screen. So if I wanted to, I could use it to do quite a bit more. I just have chosen to, because I'm more of a visual person, which sounds kind of funny, but I am, and it's because of that I tend to appreciate Zoom Text more to do my work. So I use Zoom Text when I can, and let JAWS kick in in situations where it makes more sense. And a lot of times I do use JAWS if I'm actually using my laptop as a laptop, like at a meeting or somewhere away from my desk where I don't have the nicer size monitor. JAWS comes in really handy, because in those situations oftentimes I don't use the screen at all. I strictly use JAWS to help me do everything.
What size screen are you using now?
This is a 19-inch flat screen, which before I had a 21-inch standard, but it seems that the 19-inch flat screen now offers about as much visibility as the 21-inch did without being a flat screen.
Have you had any challenges or difficulties with getting JAWS to integrate with any of your software, or Zoom Text for that matter?
Well, the primary, there are some issues with JAWS with a couple of the applications I use. Unfortunately, that's not all that uncommon with some more specialized software packages that people use at different locations. Luckily for me, that's where Zoom Text comes in. Quite frankly, there probably would be certain aspects to my job I could not do if I solely had to rely on JAWS. A lot of that might be just pure and simple inability for JAWS to interface with software, but a lot of that too is probably just my lack of being able to manipulate JAWS to its fullest extent. I mean, JAWS is actually a very comprehensive software, and that it'll allow you to do a lot of things that most people never get to indulge in. You know, it's one of those things where, you know, 90% of the people use 10% of what's available.
Right.
You know, but if I had more training and more time, you know, I could probably make it do a lot more. And JAWS, as well as Zoom Text now. Zoom Text has started doing this too. Allows for scripting, where you can make, if it comes as is, it doesn't work with certain software applications. You can write scripts and little computer programs to make it interface with those programs better. This is an old model. This is a closed-circuit television, CCTV, and this allows me to take something in print and just magnify it onto the screen. So on the rare occasions that I do have to read something in print, this is what I use, and this allows me to zoom in, zoom out. I can do there again. I can do the inverting of white on black to black on white, and this even allows me to go into full color mode. I'm looking at a bookmark here of guide dog etiquette, and as I was saying, this is quite a bit of an older model, but even still, I had the option. I've just chosen not to, but I could actually connect this machine to my computer monitor and make one monitor available to both the computer and this. And I don't have that here set up here at work. I have that at home. If I have anything at work related that I need to scan, which occasionally I do, I'll just take it home, scan it, and bring it back in. It's just a little bit more feasible to keep that equipment at home. This is my very active guide dog, Rick. You can tell he's a really hard-working kind of dog when I'm here at work. But he's my guide dog, my first guide dog. I got him in October of 2005. What's interesting is that even though I have him here at work, I hardly ever use him at work. Primarily the reason I have him is for outside of work. But like I said, I was introduced to him in October of 2005. He's actually changed my life quite a bit in that, you know, when I'm not at work, I'm actually very active out and about, running around doing a lot of things. You know, when I'm at work, I'm just basically sitting here, you know, at my desk. I leave occasionally to go get coffee or go to the men's room or an occasional meeting, but the primary benefit I get from Rick is outside of work, because I'm very active in the blind community and just running errands and doing things like everyone else does. And that's where he comes into play. I used to, when I traveled with the cane, I got around a lot more slowly than I did with Rick. I'd say Rick has probably made me travel when I walk around about twice as fast. And at night, probably even more so. Just because at nighttime I really had a harder time getting around, just because I have worse vision at night. But adjustments, I mean, it's one of those things that, you know, anymore it's hard to even say because I've gotten so used to doing it. But I do know at first it did pose quite a bit of inconvenience on me, just trying to get used to taking him out several times a day, you know, feeding him, caring for him, grooming him, all things that just added more time to my day that I didn't have to get used to before that. But now, after having him over 2 years, you know, it's just part of your routine. So, and everyone told me it would be that way. You know, when you first start out, you're like 2 or 3 months, it's like a shock, and then suddenly one day you realize that the benefits you're getting out of it and the relationship you have with your dog, it just makes everything worth it. So even picking up poop is not that bad anymore. Everyone I've known that has had a dog at a work site, very little accommodation is really needed. You know, the couple things I know they have to be aware of here is, you know, making sure that I wasn't sitting near anybody that is allergic to dogs. Other than that, just giving me a place to allow him to go do his business and to dispose of it. That's really about the only accommodations that they've had to do here for having the dog.
How long did it take for you to train with the dog so that you felt comfortable having him do the navigation and learning how to handle him?
Well, the formal training for your first dog is in most schools that you have guide dogs is 4 weeks. Every guide dog school is very good. If you have questions, you have people you can call and get support, or if there's any major problems, they'll send somebody out to observe and to help you out. As far as being comfortable, well, my situation is strange because 5 weeks after I got home with him, we were walking somewhere and I slipped on ice and broke my ankle. I couldn't walk until about 5 or 6 weeks after that. Which was really good because at the time what they did, they came and got him, took him back to the facility, cared for him and kept his training up to speed, and then brought him back to me. And then sent him down with a trainer that worked with me for a whole weekend to make sure we were back up to speed. So the support is there, but I'd say, after that it was another month or two before I was really comfortable. But it hadn't been for that intermission, it probably still just been a total of a month or two before I was comfortable with him taking control. It does take quite a bit of mentality because you really, when you're using the cane, you're still the one that's somewhat in control of what's going on. You get a lot more information as far as what's around you because your cane is tapping different things. Once you get this dog, suddenly all these things that you once knew were there, you don't know that are there because he's guiding you around them. And just in general, to relinquish that trust, it takes quite a bit. One day, really for me the way it worked, it's just one day I got tired of that uneasy feeling of not trusting him, so I just said, you know what, I'm letting it go. It's on you, and he hasn't let me down since. So I have seen more kids correct their parents with my guide dog than I've seen parents correcting their kids. It's usually the adults that make me the most nervous because they're the ones that come up, oh, no, I'm not supposed to pet you, but you're just so cute. And I'm like, if you know you're not supposed to pet them, then why are you doing it? So, because that's the other thing. The thing about when you have a guide dog, you really have to understand that, yes, we're talking about you. You have to be socially responsible in that it's your job to be public relations for every other guide dog handler that person may run into. It's your job to educate them. Granted, I don't always feel like doing that. I have had my moments with people, especially when it's your 20th time that day you're telling someone not to pet your dog. Sometimes you feel like, you don't feel like being a broken record. But it's but overall, it's okay. I just try to say, please don't pet him. He's on duty. Because here's another problem is that a lot of people don't understand that when he's just sitting there or laying there beside me, when he has his harness on, which he doesn't now, but when he has his harness on, he's still working. But when you try to tell that to people, they're like, well, no, he's not. He's just laying there. So I've gotten to where I say he's on duty, and they tend to understand that a little bit more. So they ask me my dog's name, and of course I know the reason they're asking my dog's name is because the very next thing they're going to do, whether they're supposed to or not, is say hi. So when someone comes up and asks me his name, I say his name is Kitty. And then when they go, oh, hi, Kitty, and then I get free entertainment for the day watching somebody go, hi, Kitty, to a dog. In general, I really have a strong philosophy that having humor about my situation and making more people comfortable with it is really, in a lot of ways, what breaks the barriers between me as a person with a disability and someone who doesn't have it. I don't want somebody to feel like they're so nervous around me because they're scared of what they're going to say or what they're going to do, because then that just takes away from us being able to interact as two individuals versus you being nervous because of who I am, and we got to get over that. I'd say, in general, being blind has changed, or in a lot of ways defined who I am as a person. It's changed my philosophy on how I look at situations, how I solve problems, how I look at other people, how I look at differences. and it just makes me more humble, because it makes you realize that not everything should be taken for granted. And just me being very involved in the blind community in general, and meeting a lot of people that have one day had vision, the next day woke up without any for whatever reason, and just hearing their stories and situations, those are things I probably would have never otherwise heard, or at least otherwise I never appreciated to the point that I do now. And when you see and live and experience those situations day to day, that changes who you are as a person too. And, people have oftentimes asked me if I could get my vision back tomorrow, would I do it? And I quite honestly don't know if I would. Just because it is so much of who I am now. So, on the other hand, if someone asked me if I could have hair tomorrow, I probably would take that. Anyone you're working with a disability or without is first and foremost a person. Just because I'm blind doesn't mean I don't wake up with goals and dreams and ambitions and wanting to be independent, wanting to have some sort of quality of life, wanting to make something of myself, wanting to go to bed at night feeling like I accomplished something. Just because you have a disability doesn't change that. The people you're going to be working with in the field, that's essentially what you're doing. You're teaching them and giving them skills, and you're giving them the empowerment to be who they can be the same way you are who you are.